listening to the Cozy Chaos Zone. I am your host, House of Dub. Stay cozy and embrace chaos.
Welcome to the Cozy Chaos Zone. I'm your host, House of Dub. In terms of all things cozy, today I got a really good video of my dog Dusty licking my camera. It was adorable. In terms of all things chaos, it appears that I've been waking up at around 4 o'clock in the morning and responding to Discord conversations with having absolutely no remembrance of it the next day. It's very weird. I've heard of sleepwalking and sleep eating, but never sleep responding to people on Discord. It is super crazy. Today's show, we're going to shine a spotlight on a song and its composer. We'll ask questions, we're going to get answers, and we're going to learn something together. Today's song is called Statix Good Time, and it was written by a few people. It's been assembled. We have it featuring Dolwedge, Frank Yola, and it was mixed and assembled by Kitten Nugget. And we are so fortunate to have Kitten Nugget with us here today. Welcome to the Cozy Chaos Zone, Kitten Nugget. I am absolutely happy to have you here today. First of all, why don't you just start by saying hello and telling us a little bit about the track that you submitted and what makes it so special.
Hey, everyone! I'm super happy to be on this special event. First thing first, this track has been a tribute to Dolwedge's work. The name of the song is actually Statix. Hold on a second. Wait. Can we restart this? I just forgot the order of the three words. This is so bad. Sorry.
The order of the three words. It's like it's
Yeah, it's Static Good Time. Sorry.
Static Good Time.
Statix Good Time. Yeah,
Statix
exactly.
Good Time.
This was recorded like 3 days ago. Well, just the backstory of it is amazing. So, first thing first, we have an event called Songwriting Blitz on IMF, which is actually one of our games, right? The most fun part about it is that Aya, the host, um, pulls off some songs out of the dust 1 year after it has been released, because the event's been going on for so long. So the point of it is that when we finished the event, which was actually like, I don't remember, a week ago, I think. He plays like the song that he thinks that could be very cool to pull out of his dusty repertoire. So first thing that he made was playing a song that he played, and we're like all thinking that it was actually a really good idea. So he steps on a second song, the Dolwedge song, which if you don't know, guys, Dolwedge is one of our very precious member on IMF. It's been a long time that he's been doing that. Uh, his SoundCloud is actually very amazing, very talented singer. And when I heard the song, I decided to. Well, I did not decide. The bass line, the actual bass line, I fell in love with. I was like, oh my god, how can he just like have such an humble singing over such a groovy song? And I felt like there was that little Gorillaz vibe, like the band. Well, and Damon Albarn kind of tone in his voice, but not exactly what I expected to be like. It was a clean record, very clean record. So the story behind it, to make it sound like 1960, is gonna be revealed later, I guess. But for now, that song with that bass line was so amazing. Is that too much information, House of Dub, for now, or
No, I think that's all the backstory we need. We got it that it was a
nice?
songwriting blitz song. Songwriting blitz, you have 24 hours or like roughly 24 hours, a little bit more or less, to write a song based on a theme. Uh and this is one that came from the dust. This is one that came from the ashes of years past, rising from a phoenix, rising like the phoenix from the ashes. You heard
Exactly,
it. You
exactly.
heard it. You got inspired, and then I'm guessing you reached out to Dull Wedge and was like, "Let's do something with this."
No, actually not. That's the point of it.
Oh
I
yeah.
literally downloaded the MP3 and wanted to surprise Dull Wedge because I knew that Dull Wedge, when he finishes something, I did not know if it was like good release material, but I wanted to make him a surprise because I've been hanging out for long enough to have Dull Wedge as a good friend. So I just wanted to surprise him and say, "Hey, look, that's my take on your track. What do you think about it?" That's like a tribute to your bass line because it's amazing.
So you could say that the thing that really makes this song special is that it's not so much like a song that you were releasing for popularity's sake or you're chasing a genre or whatever. You really just
Exactly.
wanted to surprise a friend. You
Exactly.
wanted to
At
say, "Hey,
first.
you made a song and it inspired me to make something completely like piggybacking off of it."
Exactly. But the process of it made it so intricate that everyone like said, this sounds like super weird. The mix of it sounds super weird. Yet it's not the mix, it's the genre. Because the mix sounds super clean. I'm gonna explain to you how I did it. First of all, there's that application named Audacity, which is a free app that you can download. Audacity is like SoundForge. I think SoundForge is free as well. So it's like an audio recorder, like Cubase or whatever, with layers that you can add. But you see the waveforms in it. Okay, like FL Studio, but with a closer zoom in. And you have that amazing tool on it that is named Frequency Reducer. Do you follow me right now?
I'm following you. Frequency reducer.
Okay, so the point of it is when you use that tool a little bit, you can remove bass, you can remove voice, you can isolate bass, you can isolate voice. It's a bit like reverse engineering. What the tool actually is referring to. Hold on, I'm gonna open Audacity and you're gonna understand a little bit. The real name of the plugin on it is oh oh I'm gonna skip those. I'm gonna skip those new VST. Sorry for that. Such unprofessionalism. I got so many new VSTs, so they wanna like jump in the program.
Oh,
So how?
congratulations. I know they're so happy to just be part of the DAW.
Exactly, exactly. So it's reduction and vocal isolation. So let me drag some there. Right. Reduction and vocal isolation. So you have to select the whole track and do some wizardry on it, which we're gonna talk about a little bit because that's the point of, to me, that's the point of this second part where we're going. Uh, so you have a strength. First of all, the strength should be the minimal. It's like a 1. If you put the 1 ratio, it starts from 0.00. So if you put a 1 ratio, you're gonna cut like massive frequencies. So if you go by 0.01 and you cut the bottom for voices in hertz and you cut the top in hertz, it's like the equalizer hertz, basically the same values.
Okay.
So if you go in the studio or any DAW that you have and you put a parametric equalizer on it, you can get high pass, low pass. So when you equalize a song, you can have that amazing tool and just reduce. Let's say we put a high bypass on 40 hertz, and then you flip it to low bypass. You'll hear as if you were having something without sub bass first, and the second one you'll hear something that is plain sub bass. So you can reduce that sub bass. The point of reduction and vocal isolation is that you can do that magic trick where you find that sweet spot, but you cannot double do it. So every time that you try it, it's a trial mistake, basically, until you succeed. So you have to roll back from the beginning of the track every time. So I was so enthusiastic about having that bass recorded that I recorded the part like on the side, but I tried to isolate the tracks. Vocal was super hard to do, but the bass was like a sub bass plus about, if I remember, that was like 30 hertz on top. So let's say it sits at 60, and then you just like isolate the sub bass. So I've been able to isolate the sub bass with a high pass on studio that I was my first DAW that I was listening to, and then I dragged the whole track in Audacity, which is the second one, and I start applying those values. But those values I wrote on sheet of paper basically. So I covered a range of around like 500 hertz. Fair enough.
Okay.
Reducing them one by one. Find that sweet spot where the kick, which wasn't side chain for a very good tip, because if the kick side chain, your bass is gonna whoop like whoop, whoop, every time. So that's tricky. I'm not a pro at it, but you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and an analyzer. So that comes to 9 tools inside the reduction and isolation, vocal isolation. So on those 9 tools, I did like voice suppression, voice isolation, delete center, go to mono, delete center, isolate center. So I think that was about isolating center and go to mono that I used, and I started using all of those values that I wrote on the paper, a sheet of paper. So I had like 6 sheet of paper of like trial mistake of vocal isolation, and I didn't find it. So there are some tools online, free ones that are really cool. Fader, FADR.com is an amazing tool for mixing and mashups and remixing, because you can isolate the tracks, but they kind of sound drippy a little bit. So that's how we're gonna go to vocal isolation later on. But I did is isolate that sub bass to my sweet spot, and whenever I got it, I was like, oh my god, this sounds drippy a little bit. But there's a good thing about it is if dull wedges like it, I'm gonna say, look, the bass sounds drippy, but do you have the stems back? So I can like create a custom sound of bass by dubbing the sub bass and the new track all together. The stems, I mean, the original stems. With a little bit of stretching, with a little bit of cuts, I got to the perfect BPM. And the both track like kind of merged. But that wasn't in the first result. So to come back to Audacity, the good point of having that tool is that you can actually get that sweet kick not whooping around. If the song is like rockish or something, you can isolate the song from the snares, from the vocals, from everything, and that's like the sweetest satisfaction moment. Reverse engineer a remix. So that was my take on dubbing. Dull wedge. Sorry, I'm a little bit shy and stressed about that because that's the first time I'm explaining it. But like I did, as I said, like three full sheets of paper, something like that, and they were all frequencies. Like, okay, I need to go from 0 to 1 to see what it gets.
I can
So
almost
I
I can almost imagine it, when you're there with all of your papers and you're just trying to dial in that sweet spot, and
dude, it,
you're just like Dr. Frankenstein when the lightning strikes and the monster takes its first steps and it's alive, like you found it. That's what it
exactly.
seems
Well,
like.
so the bass sounds like vinyl record from 1960. And if you want a 1960 feel, you have to dub your tracks. Literally, as I did. Because that grain is losing so much quality that if you dub it with original stems. So there's that technique that I call record with a good sound that you're gonna use in your next song. Save it to highest quality ever. Put it in Audacity. Isolate it. Swap the track. Lower the track of the original one. Lower the track of the second one. Find the sweet EQ for both. And you're gonna have a crisp sound with a 60 like wavy vinyl touch on it.
That is a awesome tip. I mean, that's
So
something that
that's
honestly is something I would never think to do to try to get that sound.
so exactly. Well, I decided that I would go for that with the voice after. Voice, as I said, was so drippy that I tried my best to crisp it. But if you lose the frequencies like on the snare, but if you have trumpets on it, trumpets are higher than voices. But snare are just right, the frequencies below the low range of a tenor, per se, or a soprano, I don't know. But I don't know too much voices, but I think it's like in the lowest and the highest range right below it. A crisp snare is. So the point of it is to remove the frequencies. Hold on, then I'm gonna show you. Not show you, but explain you with actual good data. That is. Did you hear that noise?
No, I didn't hear that one.
Nice. Okay, so I have my completely working now. Give me a second. I'm gonna pull off that parametric EQ. Tell you the trick. So it's very crisp. It's a very crisp high pass, unlike 260, with a very good gain at 14070, 470 hertz. So what you do is remove completely sub bass from the voice, which the sound of the sub bass when you isolate a track will get to like waves of discordance in the pronunciation. That will almost look like it's flashy. It's hard to explain, but it will look like it's flashy and very blurry as well, almost as a vocoder. And you don't want that if you want a Gorillaz sound. You don't want that digitalized render. So what you have to do is cut the flashiness about like 66%, I would say. So all you hear is like the blurriest of the lowest note that cuts the snare on top. And the snare will melt with your new beat making, no matter how, if you just follow it and apply a snare to that exact timing. And that's exactly how I dubbed the song. I made sure that that snare was my centerpiece for applying the vocals on it. So and because the trumpets are really hard to isolate, so when it gets to a higher range, if you put like a trumpet on it or any horns, those things get really blurry with the voice because they are almost the same frequencies but a little bit higher. So once the first verse stops, there's a snare. That's my point where I started finding the sweet spot of moving the track and dub it exactly where that snare was on the track of the beat making. So it went instantly grooving. And the trumpets on the last part of the singing was actually so crisp that I decided to loop the verse twice And at the end of the fourth singing part, like there's a dub between 2 and 3, and when four shows, then the trumpets or the horns, I would say, are really pronounced. But that leads to a build up. Well, not a build up, but a transition effect, I would say. And that transition effect makes it as if the voices merge with some trumpet. So if you get like that boost of 1470 hertz, because that was the range of the vocal of Dulwich, like the highest point of it. On top of it, it's like it's the color of it. 104,070 was the color of it. So to have it sound a little bit like Gorillaz, where it's a radio edit sound that you will have, that sounds like as if you were like super far from a 1970 or 1980 radio, and you hear like the voice as if it was a little bit muffled, but so crisp. So what you do, I did like a down wave down to the max range of hertz. But the logic in it is that you have to add a peak, I would say. A peak in the downwards going higher range of frequencies. And that peak is gonna be like the human touch of it. Because the pronunciation and the spectrum of the voice is always different. So if you don't put that kick on it, that little peak gap after 140/70, that will never show the sound of the vocals as crisp as it should be. That will make it sound like it's vocoded on the bottom but lowered. And on the high end, it will sound like it's vocoded and muffled. But Gorillaz' sound was so crisp that the ears were a little bit like tickling when he pronounced, when he used those P's and those M's and those. So that's the consonants, vowels, the opposite of vowels in English. I don't know. I'm not
Consonants.
Consonants.
Yeah.
When he used those consonants, that's like that peak, that little peak above 140/70, 1470. So that little peak is actually what you're gonna have like the good quality sound. That's not the range, the broad range at 1470. That's like the spectrum, the color. So that little gap that you have between those must be like super wide on the right and close by 470 in that exact specific application of the equalizer. So I got that crispy sound where we can hear dull wedges pronouncing very crisply, but have like a blurry end on the low part, like the chest part of his vocals. So if you add it to the bass after, the bass have a little bit of the voice still because the voice drips a little bit over the bass. Everything drips over the bass in the end. But when you final mix it, it just like suppresses by magic wisdom for that single reason that you layered tracks and it's almost as if it's unhearable. But it's still drippy a little bit. That's why you have to add the double track on it after to make it crisp and not wavy.
Now,
so once I did the vocals and I did the bass, I was set for the mixer. And then I asked Mike,
So those are like the two big things, like getting those two things solid. And then after that, it's just like,
Well, that was like 7-hour process in it.
Now,
just those two things at 7 hours, yeah.
What did I want to just know, like, how did you present this to Dulwich, and what was his reaction?
Well, first of all, I was so enthusiastic that as I was typing and showing him, my eyes were all watery because I was exhausted, like maybe like brain fatigue, and I was so exhausted that my eyes were watery of joy. And the first thing that he says was like, dude, this is good. I'm glad that you used that song because I thought that that song was finished. I would never touch it again. The way you made it makes me sure that I never will touch it again. And I was like, dude, that's not the point. And he says, do you want the stems for my vocal and my bass? And I was like, oh my god, then half an hour in and you're asking me this and you're giving me the stems now? Of course I want them. He says, I'm gonna look and send you tomorrow or something. And that was amazing. So the first take on it was a little bit drippy. I had to do like another hour of editing and the final mix to make sure that those two were crisp enough.
What an incredible song and what an incredible story. I'm really glad you
Well,
brought this to the show. It's such an interesting and it's also just great advice on how to achieve a sound that is like a lot of people are looking to try to find that sound. Specifically what you're mentioning, like that um almost radio sampled coming through the microphone, present on the high end and crisp, but still sort of like subdued
if
in the
you had a
lows.
yes, exactly. If you had a synth on it, like chords of a synth, not stabby ones, because you don't want like movement. You want something very blurry. I would even use a synth that have almost no sub bass, but is really constant, like a pad or something. Don't need to have the pad on the real song. That will even add more texture to the bass. You can find like a very dreamy pad, pull the chords as the bass goes, and then have that sub bass like transformed. But one thing, if you want a Gorillaz sound, then you have to look for some raps. Because Gorillaz always raps, right?
True.
Well, they do often. So, my good friend Frank Yola have a very wide range and a good microphone. When he gets like to a rap, you can hear like almost the sub bass on his vocals, which must be reduced below 400 hertz for the sake of the bass line. Otherwise, it will all blurry, and the waves are gonna bust up and out with no compression even. So if you want that touch, first find like a rapper with an insane microphone. It will do a kind of ASMR trick dichotomy where you have the crispiest voice ever, like 190, 60 ish recorded dubbed, and like a very clean rap after. And he sent me a track about the prompt 11985. Because in 11985, I wasn't born. But I know that Doll Wedges was like super into like that kind of music, like Kraftwerk. Not Kraftwerk, sorry, but like insanely good music from the 80s. And which is one thing that we bonded over. Kraftwerk is one of the things that Doll Wedge and I bonded over. Because I was listening to some prior to 80 music, like 70 music, like German rock, most likely, and German electronica, which was similar to rock at first. And I found out those little pearls that were recorded like in 73, like Ralph and Florian from Kraftwerk, an album that is really like electronic rock almost, very progressive, on analog instruments with a little bit of like live record that are dubbed on magnetic tapes. So I was showing Dolwedge and I got the vibe instantly, the vibe of the guy. So I was like, dude, this won't sound like Kraftwerk, but it will definitely have some cuts on it, like the editing of waves mostly. And I got that really cozy sound for him that was almost vinyl recorded, and that's exactly what I was looking for. So when I showed him, he was kind of happy with that. Need some edition, but he was kind of happy. And he's a very humble guy. He won't tell you like straight up, "Oh, dude, that work that you did." He will be like, "Dude, do you want the stems?" I mean, I like it a lot, but you couldn't improve it if you have the stems. And I was like, "Oh my god, this is like so much humility in it."
Dull Wedge is
And the
definitely a
guy is
stand-up
very
guy.
sharp. Oh, of course, he's amazing. Like as I said, and the most iconic part of it is that whenever we talk, we can chat for like half an hour, 40 minutes in DMs, and get that good back and forth of music that is sent, and like he's really into like those vibes, like I would not say Joy Division, more New Order kind of thing, but you know the vibe that goes from very dark to very happy.
Yeah.
And he loves jazz, and his son as well loves jazz. He's a good pianist. He's studying piano jazz. So I knew that Gorillaz was probably the sound that I wanted it to sound like. Like when you produce something, every time you have to think like a reference mix that you have.
Yeah, a reference or something that you're trying to achieve.
Exactly. So I referenced Feel Good Inc. from Gorillaz as the main idea of the mix. Even if it's not the same, I had that idea at the bass line, or Clint Eastwood even.
Okay.
I pulled out those two songs from Gorillaz and listened to like the way the rapper sounds, so I can edit the EQs and have that bassy, very loud radio edit voice like this is
Yeah,
welcome
exactly.
to this radio
Because
show
when
or
when the rap
something.
when the rap does come in the song, it definitely has that like what? Right. Oh, this is happening.
Exactly. That
Yeah.
whoomp, yeah, that whoomp is very present but does not affect the instrument below. That's where the mixes is key. But
That's what.
yeah, so that was the tool that I used. Fader is actually very good for beginners if you don't want to pull off those 4 or 5 paper sheet. If you start, because the first time I isolated a song was actually a guitar lick in a very metal band. I started hard.
Really?
Yeah, I started with a Polyphia song.
Okay.
Extracted the guitar from Audacity, and that was my tutorial. Took me like 20 hours to achieve, to be honest.
You put a
One
lot of
night.
work into this.
I love sound engineering for that reason, because I think that sound engineering is the good way to learn what frequencies do. By doing trial mistake, you can understand what's below 40, what's above 40, what's below 41, what's above 41. But it's always different. And you can always hear a little reference point that makes you a graph after. A graph for every kind of voices in the mix. Understand? Like if you do it and do it over again, the experience will make you see those graphs in your head. They are really blurry, but they are kind of a good reference point, and you can write notes on the paper sheet. That's like a good tool as well. But if you're a beginner, you can always use fader and try it on one single track. That's what I did on the wedge part, because the snare was so high end on the vocals, so I had so high end in the bottom of the vocals that I had so much difficulty to isolate the shh out of the bass of Dolwedge's voice. But it can be done. It actually can be done. But the last trick that I'm gonna tell you with Audacity is that you cannot double take on a mix with the vocal suppression. You have to start back every trial and mistake from scratch. Because if you're double taking a track, it's gonna drip it with an exponential formula every time, and that you cannot reverse.
Got you.
So yeah. So that that's 60 sound. That's my take on the 60 sound vocal edit that you guys can do. You can always reach me, Kitten Nugget, for a more detailed tutorial about it, but I can show you like my timestamps and tracks for those edits. I still have those paper. I think I'm gonna keep them forever, so that's a good thing.
Frame them.
So much.
I have,
Frame them and make them signed by Dolwedge. That would be amazing.
with the golden record right next to it. I have to
Well,
ask you another question
yes.
though. This is Cozy Chaos Zone, so we ask some cozy questions, but we also have to ask some like chaotic questions. So like,
Nice.
now imagine a parametric EQ is a swimming pool. Okay, you got the all the way at the lows, you got all the way to the highs. Where would you like to swim in that pool?
I would like to swim. Okay, I would like to swim by the drain.
Oh yeah.
So the drain would be the high or the low cuts. High
Okay.
pass or low pass. Depends exactly of what you can achieve. So is the drain like really emptying the bottomless part of the pool, or it goes in the part of the pool where you have water up to the waist, for example? Do you understand what I mean by that?
Yeah, I got you.
So exactly. So where do you put the drain in the pool? Do you put it on the deep end, or you put it on the like raised floor part of that swimming pool? I don't think it as a full square. I think it as, because every audio have that kind of wave where you can say, "Oh, that guy was such a good editor." And if the guy's a good editor, well, the bottom is gonna be really flat. But if you want to remix something that has been done, I would assume that the sub bass is probably gonna be the. So you have to reverse the pool, basically. The sub bass should not be the deep part. That's the way how I perceive it.
Okay.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Works for me. Do you have anything else you want to plug? We're gonna plug the song, and obviously everyone can find it. Links in the description of the episodes. But do you have anything else you want to plug? Anything you want to direct people's attention to? The floor is yours.
Dream of Lasers. Dreams of Lasers on SoundCloud. It's Dolwedge's project. The guy is amazing. He does insane collab with IMF people, and this is like why I took a take on one of his songs and make it a surprise. For that simple reason that that guy is actually one living icon of a dude who produced so much music but never finishes it. And he says that himself. He produced really good idea, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna put that on the table and finish it later. But when you make something new, you think like, oh, I'm gonna focus on that new work. I'm gonna focus on that new work, and you accumulate those stems, you know. And when he does finish something, that's so good. I think I liked all of his songs so far, for that simple reason that every one of them was jaw dropping. You have such a good range of vocals that is so humble. I love it. So Dolwedge's SoundCloud would be Dreams of Lasers. That's my plug.
Awesome. I dig it. Thank you so much for bringing this song to the program, and thank you so much for your time. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
You're amazing, House of Dub. Talk to you later, friend.
Talk to you later. Thank you.